will be going live, and it should cue in any moment. I'm waiting for the YouTube to cue in so that I know it's working.
Yeah.
It's being slow.
Yeah, I can see you.
You can see it, right? It's just my system being slow then. Okay. Played it.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Lies, they're telling goopy lies for a swabby surprise. Goopy lies, yes, it's all goopy lies. Hello to everyone in the chat. Good evening, welcome, well met, hello, hail, gold molding, global gulag, and all that usual good stuff that we usually say at the beginning of the show. Welcome back again to another edition of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening, when now that we're all bankers, we're all total bankers, and we're on holiday. So there you go. So if it's a bit quiet in the sense of numbers or whatever, and like Peter isn't here tonight, I think he's busy probably out enjoying the sunshine. Well, it's nearly sunset at the moment, so hopefully he hasn't been corralled or quarantined in the hills of Wales somewhere. But
we're free.
Yes,
we're free here now. We're allowed to go anywhere we like.
Yeah, free in the country, apart from across the boundary. Yeah. You're not allowed to cross the boundary.
That's fine.
Yeah. You got to stay in your own part. Yeah, play down your own end, like they used to say. Get down your own end, Goethe. Yeah. Go and play down your own place. Right. Hello, everyone in the chat room. I will play a bit of music shortly. I was doing my usual kind of silly lyrics parody. If you don't recognise the song, it was a song called Little Lies by Fleetwood Mac. And I just changed it this week because of things that have happened over this week. The goopy lies. I'll show some imagery and whatever about that later and mention that. And try and sort of point at some of the things that I think have been set in motion this week that connect through. Well, the way I interpreted it was that goopy lies. Here we go. They're spinning another tale to try and misdirect the public. It's quite amusing sometimes. Hello to everyone in the chat. One must. Hello. And Tazzy's in the chat. Hello, Taz. And scrolling down, Lowlands Pete's in the chat and he's in the room tonight. Wish Fix, hello. And High Plains Drifter, hello. I guess who? We got a nice piece of hickory. So South, hello. And Roscoe Pico Train, hello. Happy Easter for everyone that celebrates Easter. It is that first part of the cycle after the spring equinox. That's the main thing to me. I'm not a Christian. I've said this many times. I'm not a Christian, so I don't exactly follow the Christian celebrations, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the societal benefits. I'll put it that way, just to say it quickly. It's not that I don't appreciate the societal benefits. That's another thing I'm going to mention in a bit that's connected to that. But anyway, sorry, yeah, happy Easter. Where did I get to? Benno is in the chat with us tonight.
Yeah, hey there.
Mascaras.
Good to be back.
Hello, yeah, I'm glad you managed to get online again. And Sidefish, hello. Dave Iron, hello. And Oshamo69, hello. Man Bear Pig, hello. Resi Tuber, hello. I'm trying to scroll down not too quickly so I don't miss people out. I'm sure I missed out CMB last week. Hello, mate. If you're there, if you're listening. It's just sometimes because the way StreamYard works, it doesn't keep the entire cache of the chat. So sometimes I can miss people out, or if I'm scrolling too quick, I miss people out. Paula, hello. Thanks to Tony. I did get a link to your channel in the end, so I've given you a spanner. So if you want to share links in the chat now, you can. Or you should be able to if it's registered properly for now. I haven't checked yet. Let me just quickly swap over to the YouTube page. Yes, you have a spanner. Cool. Right. That makes it easier for that. And Faith Farah, hello. Oh, scroll's jumping now. Dotty's in the chat. Hello. Manos Moo. Hello. And Jam Noise. Hello, Jam. You're still grooving. I'm going to play that song in a bit. Just to add the groove, to add the vibe. Because I think that helps a lot with all the stuff that's going on at the moment. Nika Chief, hello. Hope you're all right, mate. Coping with all the craziness. It is truly an insane world at the moment, or they're certainly trying to make everybody insane by giving everybody Munchausen syndrome. You know, pretend that you've got it. And it's, I sat here and I was thinking about this, and I think, well, if I pretend that I've got it, what you're suggesting to me really is sort of like, I pretend that I've got it, therefore I would alter my behavior so that I'm potentially protecting others from infection, because if I've got it, then, you know, there's that chance of me infecting other people and stuff like that. But you also keep telling me that it's such a dangerous and nasty and fatal alleged illness, pathogen, that therefore the worst you can get it is to be dead. So am I supposed to pretend that I'm dead? Because that would be the best way to protect everyone, wouldn't it? You know, so is that the level of Munchausen you want me to adopt? Yeah. They say act like you've got it. So, oh, so you want me to act like I'm dead because you keep telling us how deadly it is? Yeah. Oh, silliness. But yes, I want to play a music track before we get into talking about stuff. And I will mention some of the things that have happened over the week, like I usually do. You know, there's been a usual selection of news events and whatever that have been going on. But I mainly want to point at, as I often do, a clear example of media spin techniques and propaganda techniques and narrative scripting to steer public thinking. Describe it like that. I've done this so many times, but I think it's still something that needs to be continuously repeated, reiterated, because there's always new people listening, or there's maybe something's mentioned that people hadn't thought about before, hadn't realized. And when most of what this system does relies on media being used to manipulate the perception of the populace such that the populace think something in particular is happening when it's not at all, so that therefore they can be steered, they can be manipulated from that perception, then obviously the ability to break down propaganda and see it for what it is a tool, it's a weapon that protects people. Yeah, it's a weapon that is very effective against the system's primary weapon. I suppose you could call it a defense mechanism rather than a weapon. You know, propaganda is the weapon, and being able to dismantle the propaganda is the defense against that weapon, countermeasures against that weapon. So yeah, I will be sort of talking about stuff that is a common subject matter for me on this channel. And especially when it comes to the BBC, who are the primary culprits. But anyway, let me sort out queuing up this song. This is a song that Jam Noise shared earlier today. And I did go to the channel and I put the track in my conscious music playlist, which is just, you know, like the label says, it's music that I find to have that element of conscious awareness to it, as well as, you know, music is good for the soul, as they say, one way or the other. It can help you expel that aggressive energy if required, and it can also help you tap into it, and it can bring back joy and exuberance of life and all that good stuff. So, you know, music is a very powerful tool when dealing with all their propaganda bullshit. And sometimes it's good to just, you know, get a nice tune going, to have a chillax to, or a dance to if you want to dance. Right, is that sharing? Yes. Hopefully this will share the audio as well. This is, get me cursor out of the way, from Sahara and Big Daddy. And I'm just going to mute myself and play it.
Yo, Sahara.
Hey, Big Daddy.
This song's called What the Fuck, brought to you with love.
Have you missed us?
It's been a year. What the fuck is going on here? Ooh. It's been a year. What the fuck is going on here?
You locked us in the house, motherfuckers. You took away the beach, motherfuckers. You took away my speech, motherfuckers. Now you wanna stamp my motherfucking green passport?
I was born a free motherfucker. That's the way it's gonna be, motherfucker. Cause I decide for me and my immunity, the only shot I need is some vitamin D, motherfucker.
She's talking about dick, yo. Dick, yo.
It's been a year. What the fuck is going on here? Oh, what a year. Oh, what a year.
Oh, what a year.
Everybody's living in fear. Everybody.
Fucking fear, you know?
Everybody.
But if you think you can control my mind and tell me how I'm supposed to feel inside, well, I've got only one thing to say. It's my life, I'm gonna live it my way. I ain't gonna throw no blame, cause we all lose when we play that game. But fuck this fucking government. Now listen to Sahara, she about to represent.
I trust my cosmic karma. I don't believe big pharma. I think I'm going bananas from living in my pajamas, and it's a shit show with nowhere else to go. So I dive deeper inside me to find my own flow. And this is not a joke. We gotta stay woke. We gotta keep it together and fly like birds of a feather above these storm clouds. We gonna shout it out loud that we will not be broken. We keep our hearts open.
What is going on, man?
What the fuck is going on?
5G, y'all. Bill Gates.
Find the right mute button.
You're gonna sing.
Sing.
No more beer for you, man.
I think, thanks, Tosh, you put the link in the side chat. Cool, thank you. Yeah, go and check it out, folks. Very well put together track. I really liked it. It's got that groove to it, you know. and some decent lyrics. not all this silliness about, you know, doing the lap dancing on Satan's lap just so you could sell some crappy trainers. Yeah, sold my soul. At least I got a happy meal. All that kind of shit. No, it's some decent lyrics there, some decent groovy tunes. So thanks for sharing that, Jam. I'm glad you found it. And hello to people who joined in the chat room. Apple Charlotte, hello. And Genuinely Concerned, hello. And Breathe Again, 777, hello. And I thought I saw another Robert Mobley, hello. I was going to say, I was sure I saw other names popping up as well. I'm trying to quickly scroll. Patrick Nee, hello. So hopefully that got you a bit of a groove on. System of a Clown and the Non-Essentials. Hello, yes. Red Imp, hello. Hive Mind Concussion, hello. My chat box is chatting up again. Catching up again. The chat box is catching up again. Get me words out proper. So hello to everyone joining in the chat. Thanks for joining in. Hope you've all been having a good weekend. The sun has been shining. Vintanag, hello. The sun has been shining over this weekend. And Saul Bollocks, hello. Yeah, there's been so much of that Saul Bollocks. But meanwhile, the sun has been shining and we've had some fairly good weather here in the UK over the weekend. In most places, some places got snow and cold and yeah. But hopefully the sun will last a little bit longer. Rebecca, hello. Just seeing that come up in the chat. I'm trying to take more notice of the chat, as you can probably see. And as it is, we're often talking about the news and whatever. I was just checking the live stream still going yet. It seemed to have gone a bit quiet, but we're often talking about stuff that's been happening in the news events, mainly because I want to point out the various ways they're trying to manipulate the narratives or create narratives that they can then use to manipulate the people, manipulate the populace. So in that kind of frame of mind, now that we've got a good groove vibe set up, so that hopefully people won't fall so much for that kind of fear factor that they intend some of these news to contain, some of this kind of news media shit that goes around. Let me find that one. No, that one. And you might get a bit of infinity for a moment. I'm going to share this one as well, in case you missed it. Thanks to Paula for linking this. This was, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but if you're of a certain age demographic, you might recognize that kind of 1970s public information film style. And they've done this so well, and it's really good sort of tongue-in-cheek satire. But again, it's that kind of element where comedy and presenting the information in a way that sort of parodies the fear factor helps to get people out of that amygdala trap, the trap of that fear cascade that takes over your mind. And instead, then they can apply more rationality to the question and the information at hand, so that they're not being deliberately twisted and manipulated by the emotion alone. And I was going to play a Crass tune as well that Dinny shared with me, Crass Bloody Revolutions. But when I tried putting it in Google to do the share screen thing, it just plastered a whole load of adverts over it. So I thought, no, I can't share that, because that's just too ironic that a track about revolutionary bullshit, because that's what they're singing about, the propaganda bullshit around revolution, violent revolutions, Yeah, and fucking Google slaps a whole load of adverts all over it. So yeah, I'll just share the link in the chat. Go and give it a listen if you like a good punk track. And this one as well. I want to share the link for this one. Dr. Rock, you linked this one earlier. I might play it. I don't know what you think. Do you think it'd be all right copyright-wise if I played that? Because it's on a BitChute channel. And I know that YouTube at the moment is rather, it suffers many anxiety attacks when you start playing things from other platforms. I know this is part of their deliberate, steady progress towards...
Yeah, because I'm pretty damn sure the person who did the tune wouldn't have any problem with you playing it, and BitChute won't. It would be interesting to see if YouTube pick up on it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it is a cracking tune and a brilliant video as well. We, in fact, Synchro said she reckons it's one of the best things she's ever seen on the internet.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to share it, because I think they did a fantastic job on merging that video content. Yeah. But I'll leave it open here. We'll come back to it later.
Yeah.
But to mention some of the news stuff that's been happening over the week, as you know, there's been protests going around for the Kill the Bill. I mentioned this last week about how there was a fair amount about that situation, certainly in Bristol, where it got quite violent. There was a fair amount about that situation that left me with a lot of questions about, well, this doesn't really look like a genuine protest. This looks like a far too well organised, like NGO influences. And then over the course of the last couple of weeks, as you know, we've mentioned it here and there. Again, shout out to Jay Harry for sharing these links. I'm not going to play the actual video. I just wanted to show this one main imagery to make that point. You know, we found, I'm saying we, it's not necessarily me, so various people on the internet have been looking into these things and looking for information and finding out these little dots to connect. That's the way things go. But I was speculating about the strong possibility that the situation in Bristol, and as it's been attempted to be rolled out across the UK, I think they're setting this up to be the energy absorption tactic for the natural, organic, genuine energy that's rising up amongst the populace against the lockdowns, against the mask mandates, against all that con job bullshit. They know that more and more people are now getting to the stage of they're prepared to go to a protest march or get out on the streets in some fashion. So instead, they offer their controlled opposition alternative, which happens to include this same organizational group that seems to keep cropping up again and again and again whenever violent action in the streets is required, such that it creates a justification for the further oppression of the police state. The police are going to demand more powers to deal with these violent activists, these professional activists that keep turning up and creating chaos and destruction. Lo and behold, where's those connections all linking back together again to those NGOs that love to create controlled revolutions, fake revolutions, color revolutions. And there is a massive long thread and voluminous amounts of information about all this concept, the organized revolutions, color revolutions, etc. If you have an interest in it, you can follow that thread. Like I said, there's a lot of info there. Goes back a long way as well. And to things like the Otpor, which was one of the main groups that helped create the methodologies of the organized color revolutions that have been spreading in various places for the last 2-3 decades. So yeah, not a surprise that turned up. And as I say, thanks to Jay Harry for sharing that. These are the little dots that we can connect together and see. There's plenty of other footage as well. It shows all the protesters all wearing masks and whatever and carrying professionally printed mass-produced signage and stuff like that. It's, yep, there we go, same old controlled opposition. And this is just some of the imagery from recently over the weekend. Yeah, yeah, it is in Bristol. I was going to say I'm not 100% sure if it's in Bristol, but it is. I don't know about the channel. This is just the channel that was, you know, putting up the content covering it. And again, I'm not going to play these. You know, it's. I don't want to belittle it or dismiss it by saying it's the same old stuff, but it is just the same old stuff. It's riot porn that is justifying the increase in the police state and the oppressive nature of the police state, where the police are getting blatantly violent with the public for no good reason. They are being overtly physical for no good reason. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is not a good reason for the police to need to do something about it, but they don't need, like has been shown in many other video clips, to be shoving their plastic shields in people's faces when they're just sat on the floor in protest. You know, getting punched in the face by a constable's plastic shield for doing nothing but sitting on the ground. Yeah, so there's been all that kind of stuff happening here in the UK over this weekend. You know, it's like I say, it is sort of like the same old stuff again. But to me, this is indicative of the kind of thing I was pointing at last week about the sort of change of chapter. Now we're coming into the summer period. Now we've got past the spring equinox. Now we're in the time period of the rebirth. This is the month of lambing. You know, why is it the Easter festival? It's because that was the time of the year that marked the return of the sun. Why do we have April Fool's Day? Because the 1st of April used to be the first day of the year on the as far as I remember, the Justinian calendar. April the 1st was the first day of the year, because this was the time period that was sort of like the generally agreed time period that spring had truly began. Spring has returned. The sun, S-U-N, has returned. So that's encoded into Christian theology as the rebirth of the sun, S-O-N. Yeah, and there's a hell of a lot more to that, which is a long conversation, which I've had many times, but it's not, you know, necessarily a subject I want to get back on for however long tonight, you know, because it'll go on for ages. But in terms of all this kind of stuff happening, we have, like I say, sort of turned the page to another chapter. This is now the chapter that's relevant for this summer period up until we get to autumn again, and then they'll start the narrative switch again to claim about more cases and whatever because of the winter period coming and stuff like that. But they're switching this chapter up. And over the last week, we've had this kind of situation happen. They're rebirthing the violent protests. You know, they're putting energy into bringing that back to your streets to try and create a directing narrative that they can use. And at the same time, as I mentioned last week, we had that situation around the tanker that got stuck. And as Annie Logical pointed out, you know, the symbolic connection to the colours and the position of the tanker in the canal, and the fact that once it was released, it was like that's like the plunger of the syringe going down and the fluid is being released. And there was a very obvious and distinct colour difference in the water around that tanker. It represented that green element, you know, the old Ebola green was back again. You know, that green that is meant to represent a kind of poisonous or toxic substance. Yeah, all this stuff is going on at the moment as we switch into the summer period. So, the goopy lies, let's get onto that, because that will, I think, add a bit more definition to what I'm pointing at. Now I can't really play all of this. A few people have shared this and talked about this story. This was a supposed undercover investigative journalist operation carried out by the BBC Yeah, and this is fair use. None of my stuff is monetized. I'm not attempting to make money off their content. This is purely for critique and analysis and commentary. So fair use rules apply. But even with that said, I'm not going to play the content of the actual clip because YouTube just ignores the law whenever it wants. It creates its own terms and conditions and then contradicts its own terms and conditions constantly on a regular basis. So the only thing I can somewhat reliably predict is that if I play the content of certain videos or covering certain subjects, then it will get squished, because I think that was why the one previous episode got removed, was because I was sharing certain videos on the content, because I was saying my statements were pretty much the same as I've been saying for the last year. So it's not likely that they took the video down because of anything I said. It's more likely it was the content of the videos I'd been sharing on that episode. So you may have seen this story come up a week or so ago, maybe a little bit before, about how the BBC had conducted this undercover investigative action to look at what was happening around the test processing labs. Now, these are not like little labs, with just one or two people in lab coats in. These are mass industrialized systems. They're in factory units where they're processing literally thousands and thousands of samples every day. And the machines they're using are meant to process large batches at a time, things like that. And their alleged, their pseudo-investigative process reveals how during this testing procedure, these needles that come down and dip into the vials, these are test vials that have been submitted by members of the public, when they've been to get a test or whatever, and the needles go down into those vials and pick up the sample and move it to the next part of the testing machine, etc., etc. So the stuff is done in batches. And what they claim to show on their secret investigation, I can't quite get the frames just to show the one bit where you see the sort of goopy snot. Oh, there you go. That's perfect. I asked for it and the universe delivered. Yeah, that goopy snot. Because remember, you're talking about samples that would often include people's spit. They call it a phlebotomy or phlebotomist, because that's what these people do when they take tests from you. And that includes taking blood tests and whatever. A phlebotomist is somebody who takes those samples and processes them. So phlegm, phlebotomist, the clue's in the name. Often in these samples, you're going to get, globules of spit and snot, mucus, etc. So is it a surprise that there's something like that in the midst of all those test files? To me, it's not a surprise, no. And the experts they have on their little package say pretty much the same thing, in the sense of they're surprised that the tests are being processed in this manner, because it should be obvious to the people conducting these test procedures that you're going to encounter situations like that. So therefore, your process should be set up in such a way that that kind of thing is not happening, because that will cause cross-contamination. So the BBC make this whole big thing about, hey, don't worry, folks, look, we've checked it out. We've sent in the undercover investigative agent, the journalist, to go and secretly record what's happening so we can show how this cross-contamination is taking place. And, these terrible companies are making an awful mess of this situation. And they've got their talking head experts there to nod and say, oh, yes, look how terrible it is. It's flabbergasting that they would be making such silly mistakes, and they're presenting it very much as like the industry is at fault here. It is poor practices on the behalf of the industries involved in processing all these tests. That's why there's so many false positives, folks. Nothing to see here. No other questions required. It's just poor industrial practices, poor lab test practices. Who is running these labs that many of the, like, you know, we've got one of the faces here, obviously on the screen is relevant to the situation in the USA, Dr. Fauci, yeah. But in a similar fashion over here in the UK, there's various politicians and talking head experts that have conflict of interest connections to companies that seem to be, just suddenly, magically, perfectly positioned to offer this service to the government, you know, to take up the government's proposed contracts. We need, you know, a business that can process these many thousands of tests per day, etc. And lo and behold, my mate that I know down the club, you know, he's one of my Eton club mates. He just happens to have set up a business just the other month, just before the crisis started. Isn't it convenient? Yeah, this is very, very akin to how there was a sudden, very convenient supply of X-ray machines at the time that they started pushing the security questions in airports and insisted that everybody went through these scanning machines. Conveniently, my mates just set up a company that makes and sells those machines. Oh, wow, amazing. Yeah, this is the same kind of situation of where did these companies suddenly spring from that are capable of processing all these tests that are required per day for this kind of moonshot bullshit that Bojo talked about a while ago, yeah? And now we get to this week, where, as I say, the goopy lies, which I'll explain a bit further here, with the spin tactics that the BBC has been employed to use on the public. But this week, Bojo announced that now we're going to be giving free tests to all the UK population, so you can test yourself twice a week. We're going to be offering these tests to everyone so that you can be tested twice a week. He's like, all right, really? So you've got these kind of poor practices, allegedly, leading to false positives, and you now want to increase the number of tests being done across the country. So these labs, these companies, I use the word lab loosely, these companies are now going to be under even more pressure, or more companies are going to have to start up. So it's a real good money milking machine out of the tax budget. Yeah, well, if there is this kind of cross contamination going on, then that means the numbers of false positives are going to go up and up and up, because this is going to keep happening. Funny, convenient timing that, Mr. Bojo, that you announced this new idea this week, just after this story comes out, just after, or trailing after, maybe not necessarily just after, because this has been building up for a few weeks, couple of months maybe. Trailing after, a lot more information has been steadily revealed and put in front of the public, and even gone through court cases and got a judgment in their favour that the PCR tests in particular are absolutely fucking rubbish. And that's putting it in somewhat nice language. Using a bit of verbal velocity to stress the point, yeah, they are fucking rubbish. They are not only junk science, they are actually caustic. They are corrosive science. Corrosive, get me words out without coughing. They are caustic in their effect, and that's deliberate. Yeah, that's my argument. That's my opinion. That's my posit. Yeah, that's where they can, stick the usual conspiracy theorist label on me. Yeah, I posit that is done deliberately on purpose. And I've mentioned this a few times recently. Yeah, why is it that they will not admit through public freedom of information requests what the cycle threshold is that they are applying in those tests? Why won't they admit that? If it's genuine good science, then they'd have no problem admitting it, because they know the science would back it up, and all the other scientists around the world would go say, yeah, that's right, that's accurate. We've compared our calculations, we've peer reviewed it, yes, that's good. They won't. They won't show you that information. Why? That proves they're hiding something. What could they be hiding? You look at the other information about, well, why would you need to be worried about the cycle number threshold? Well, if it goes above a certain point, the results basically become absolute junk, because they will guarantee return the thing that you're looking for. You can test a lemon and it will give you the same result as when you test a human. It will say, yeah, they've got the illness or whatever. Yeah, they've got the thing that they're looking for. So why does Bojo now want to give everybody these extra tests, 2 a week? Is it because they know the numbers of false positives will ramp up, so then they can claim there's another spike? And does it also happen to coincide with this story coming out of the BBC, so they can attempt to misdirect? And this is what I'm saying about media propaganda techniques used to misdirect the public's thinking. To misdirect the public into thinking that the only reason there is any talk of false positives is because of this kind of industrialized practice. So not only does it misdirect the culpability and blame and the questions about what is actually going on here, why are there these kind of results coming out of the data, why is the science falling apart in this fashion? Instead, it's blamed on this thing, this poor practice technique. And at the same time, it reinforces the concept that the thing, the illness, is real and actually exists and is genuinely part of the problem. It's just that we need to have better procedures to get a more accurate result, or more clean facilities, etc., etc. Misdirects all those questions completely. Why are there false positives? Poor production practices. Why is there what some people call the case-demic? Poor production practices, poor processing procedures, therefore cross-contamination, therefore bad results. No. When Bojo and Hancock himself, both of them himself, like they're part of the same entity, different heads of the Hydra, both of them were forced to admit publicly that the PCR tests are 97% unreliable. So why the fuck are you using it? That's like saying, I can give you this medicine, but it's 97% unreliable. You might be considering, well, are there other medicines available that have a better reliability, please? Because that would be the absolute last option if that's all you got to fucking offer. But no, in this case, they're being accepted as the science, trust the science, when it is not science. It makes a mockery of that terminology.
Roulette.
Yes,
Russian
exactly.
roulette with statistics.
Yeah, and for them, it enables them, because they are hiding the cycle threshold numbers. It enables them to perpetuate this concept that there is an ongoing situation. You know, I don't want to use the word pandemic because it's not a pandemic, and I'm sure that's possibly part of the key phrasing problematic shit that YouTube has, you know, when I say things like that. But I would like them to disprove that with all the freedom of information availability. Disprove it by showing the data evidence to disprove it. You can't, because the governments have forbidden you from revealing that. Therefore, they are hiding something. Therefore, they are lying. That is the only logical conclusion. That's just deductive reasoning. Sorry. That's what every investigative agent does. That's what a detective does. So you saying all the people who are detectives are not using their logical abilities correctly, then how the fuck do they figure out crimes? We apply the same deductive reasoning to the information they're presenting to us. The conclusion comes out, conspiracy. Oh, well, you know, maybe we ought to start taking a list of names.
Yeah, I've been wondering about these tests since the beginning as well. You know, the fact that they're obviously not a test and never were. And that was actually pretty much revealed to be the case when they used them, I think, for HIV as well. And I don't, you know, the question inevitably arises, doesn't it? Well, if it's not a test, then what is it? What else? What is it doing? Because we know that they're massaging the figures with it and stuff, and that's really good. But do you reckon there's anything else going on there?
I don't know. Quite possibly. But what it is,
Because I mean, one of the things that really strikes me is that quite apart from the obvious problem of having to go right the way up to the back of your nose for something that apparently a mask helps with the transmission,
which supposedly you can transmit by coughing. So if you can cough, why can't I just cough at you?
Why can't I just breathe? Yeah, just breathe on it or lick it or something like that. You know, give it a good snog. But the thing is that apparently right up there, up the end of your nose, there's kind of like this tiny little, really thin, like web of bones between kind of like your nose and the blood-brain barrier. And it's important to realize that the blood-brain barrier is specifically there. It's a really special organ that stops stuff that's in the rest of the body from getting into the brain. And what I'm thinking is I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard pretty terrible tales of the idea that children, for example, are going to be self-testing with this maybe twice a week, and that people, so that the potential for physical damage to a really sensitive and pretty much irreparable part of your system. And it's, you know, it's just physical damage. It's people it seems to me that just they're inviting physical damage that won't be easily repairable, even if there's anybody there to repair it. I think it's shocking.
And if there is any kind of contamination on those buds, you're then presenting that contaminant to that blood-brain barrier as well.
And if you're going to be giving them to everybody across the population to use twice a week somewhere, we've got another of these mysterious production facilities that is just turning out millions and millions of them. And I actually did work. I worked in bioenergy, what we call I worked in a company that basically printed millions and millions of little finger sticks that go into blood glucose monitoring machines for diabetics. And these things, they were basically like a little electric circuit. And when you put the blood on them, they generate a different current. And so there was kind of like a living ink on these things that measured the current. It was really amazing. But the production process for them was really, really strictly controlled. But there were huge tolerances, you know, and there were batches of them that didn't work and batches of them that would only work after 8 or 10 weeks in store. And we were turning out millions of them every day. But you know, knowing what I know about the way such places work, it doesn't really matter how clean you keep them or how carefully you look after your staff or whatever. The potential for contamination is pretty huge all the way along the line, I would have thought. Either deliberate or accidental, you know. I mean, I just don't trust, given that we appear to be being lied to about practically this whole thing. I think anything's possible, really.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I felt this was sort of like the main point from this week. I've mentioned this before. I've got the sense that they've started to switch gears with certain elements of the narrative because they're getting ready to cover their own asses. Yeah, this is now where we're starting to get to the stage where in some places around the world, there have been successful court cases with things such as getting the PCR test thrown out because the PCR test is pointless. Yeah, that means at some point there are people that can be held culpable. So if that's the case, I think here in the UK, you know, this is our sort of rendition of it for us here. You know, it's obviously going to be presented in a different manner in different countries. Yeah. But for us, this is our governmental talking heads getting ready. Like, they know they're starting to lose control of this narrative. They know now that there is far too much, not only scientific evidence like this, you know, like the information about the PCR results and stuff like that. There's also all the anecdotal evidence, the sheer numbers of people now, thousands and thousands of people that have suffered or possibly in some cases died because of inability to access the NHS, not getting their checkups, not getting their treatments, etc. That is now a hard-hitting reality. More and more members of the public have experienced something, or they know someone that something has happened to. Yeah. So when they talk about pandemic, it's like, well, do you know anyone that knows anyone that knows anyone that's died? You know, compare those numbers of who you know who's supposedly had the illness or at the worst died from it, to the numbers of people you know that have suffered some kind of consequence, either because of the lockdown or mask restriction or whatever. Yeah, compare those numbers. Which one signifies the pandemic that you're suffering from? Yeah, is the pandemic supposedly the alleged illness that's doing the rounds, or is the pandemic the attempts to counteract that alleged illness? Which one yields more results of suffering? Yeah, and I think more of the public, even if they're not necessarily consciously aware of that significance, they're instinctually aware of it. Yeah, maybe they, like I say, they know someone or they've experienced something directly themselves, and that little gut sensation, their gut is telling them the truth. Yeah, their gut is saying this is wrong, and their brain, which has been saturated by the media propaganda, is stuck in the fog of the propaganda. So you end up with that dissonance constantly. Yeah, I think they are losing control of the narrative now. It may be slow at the moment, but it could end up becoming a cascade. And obviously the general media, because they've completely absorbed the governmental narrative, they've been the collaborators of a lot of this, you know, and talk about kind of World War rhetoric. The mass of the media, not everyone, but the mass of the media are collaborators. And a lot of the people that have perpetuated the bullshit and have chanted the kind of slogans like trust the science and that kind of stupidness, they are enablers of mental illness. I can't think of how to say it more clearly than that. This agenda has been about gaslighting the mass of the public. That is psychological abuse. Yeah, if you were going for therapy or whatever and you explain this situation as if you were talking about a singular person rather than the entity that we call the governments and all the various sub-agencies, if you presented this in a therapy session, the therapist would, or the psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever it is you're meeting with, would turn around and say, yeah, you're being abused, mate.
I think it's even worse than that, Cookie, because it's something I've been meaning to kind of look at in more detail. But there's an Amnesty International report which details basically various elements of torture. It sets out a definition of torture and what the torture is and what the victim is.
I think we got a copy of it. I think Taz managed to sort out a copy of that.
Yeah, basically it's torture. What's going on? Isolation for 14 days. I mean, all of it. There's a massive list of it. I think Amazing Polly did a great vid about it.
Yeah. I am now convinced, and I've made this point several times over the last year plus now, but I'm convinced of it now, that this whole situation has been dragged out the way it has and the way it is, you know, because it's not going to suddenly stop overnight. This is being deliberately dragged out as a method of torture to force submission. That's literally what's happening to people en masse. They want you to accept this new security environment that requires you to carry a biometric ID at all times. And that ID is to be tied into every function of society. That's what they're after. How do they achieve that goal? They use the vehicle, they disguise it as it's required for the good health of the people, for the common good. Yeah, to protect everyone's health. So they're playing on people's own good intentions. Yeah, people want to help each other. They don't want to cause harm to each other. They don't want to cause death to each other. So, of course, they're more likely to go along with what's suggested to them. What is then suggested? Something that to most people is instinctually abhorrent. The concept of a passport to be free. Because even if they're not philosophically minded, I think to most people that phrase just doesn't make sense. Passport of freedom doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I
So they
saw
know
another.
the mass of the public would, even if they're not, cognitively philosophizing about the words being presented to them, or what, they would instinctually have that sense of like, no, I don't want that. That sounds wrong. That just doesn't make sense to me. So how do they trick them? Through fear of an alleged illness that's blah blah blah. You get it, yeah.
I saw a 93-year-old lady giving a bit of a talk. I think it was on the Dollar Vigilante, and she was a survivor of the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I did catch that.
Yeah, she was basically saying, this is much worse than what she saw there, because she said there's more people involved, and because she said they, at least then, they weren't pretending it was for our own good.
Yep.
Which I thought
they were open about their eugenicist ideas.
Yeah, quite.
Their attitude was gypsies and the unfit are not wanted in society anymore. They are a burden. Don't you think it would be better if we just got rid of them? They presented it in that kind of fashion. Yeah, it wasn't so disguised. Now it's got a heavy veil of disguise on it. Yeah,
but in this giant experiment.
Yes.
Right now in the UK.
Yeah. That, I think as well is another connection.
Fucking shit show. Because if 30% of the tests turn out positive, and those people have to self-isolate until they take the
Yep.
The workforce is going to be fucking crippled. Every other week, you're going to have this guy gone, this person gone, guy from, I don't know, IT is gone, and you know the tests are shit. So what if every other week a worker gets a negative test and has to stay home, right? How long is he gonna be in his job, right?
Yeah, and then you got to take into account the fact that if they have got their act together on the test and trace, or if people cooperate fully enough with it, you're going to end up with 15, 20, 25 contacts from each of those positive cases, which in theory, if it works, each of which is also going to be subjected to a test. But I suppose they kind of, so that really will be acting much faster than the so-called virus. It is a kind of virus
much faster,
itself.
Yeah, it's a bigger crisis. It's going to create a bigger crisis than the virus itself, because it's not going to be in the hospitals. It's going to be people staying home. Not going out, not able to go out, because you're not able to go anywhere without a fucking positive test in the future, or a negative one.
Yeah.
Right.
And even though they won't say it directly, and some of them have been questioned on this point. I watched a clip of Julia Hartley Brewer, from Talk Radio, questioning one of them about this point. They won't say that they're trying to get to zero COVID. They won't say that directly because they know it's an impossibility. So therefore they can't say it, because they give them a point of liability if they do. But all their policy structure is headed that direction. All their talking points and the rhetoric they use is based on an attitude that they're expecting there to be zero COVID. And that, to me, again, should be an indication that we're dealing with insanity here. Yeah. Because that expectation that is possible in any way whatsoever, and that the possibility must be pursued no matter the consequences to the entirety of society, that is insanity.
Yeah, the numbers that they're using now is like 100 on 100,000 people. So if there are 100 positive or negative cases in under 100,000 population, there's lockdown. Yeah. At least that's in Germany and in Holland the case. I don't know what the number is in, because that differs. But
I don't know exactly what threshold they put on it, mate. But I know it's
an insane threshold, because it's like you said. If I am negative, then all the people around me are also counted as being negative. The whole household has to go in lockdown, basically. Yeah. So I don't know how they count those numbers. The whole number shit is BS, but
I think because like I said, I think they got to a stage where they know they're losing control of that sort of overarching narrative that there is an illness that people need to be scared of. that they're starting to lose control of. And maybe this is why they're sort of rushing, although, you know, it's been a year plus that all this shit has been going on. But this last few weeks is like they're tripping over themselves to push this concept as quick as possible. You know, get a test, get your jab, get your app.
Well,
and
the jab doesn't.
Will be back to normal. Promise. You know, you don't have to have a passport for the pub, but you do have to have one if you want to go to a restaurant. You know, or you know, don't mind that.
The jab doesn't work on the quick test.
Yeah,
you can still fucking register as a negative.
Yeah.
Right. So even there, the vaccine passport is not a fail-safe that you know you got the jab, you're safe. No.
Yeah.
Because you know.
And that's from their own statements. I think it was
and proven.
Van Tam, I think it was Van Tam said that even if you've had the injection, that doesn't guarantee that you won't be transmitting. Therefore, you could potentially provide a positive result.
Yeah, my guess is they're not testing for that, are they? They're not actually. I don't think one of their production parameters is preventing transmission. Or necessarily preventing infection, but I suspect they're probably not looking to see if that's what it does or doesn't do, on the basis that another common pattern I've spotted is that they don't look, because that way they don't find the evidence they don't want you to know about, and they don't have to deny it.
Yeah.
Okay, but the transmission can also happen by shaking hands, and you don't have to sneeze somebody in the face.
No.
Right.
You could just give them a note, give them a give them a coin in the realm or whatever.
You go to a public, sit on a public toilet.
Yeah, or just start singing.
Yeah.
Singing causes illness. Just that alone is, that shows the level of how they're trying to mess with people's heads.
Amazing how well it's working now, isn't it? I'm constantly gobsmacked by how well it's worked. You know, for 10 years, I've been reading about mind control and all this stuff, but to actually see it in action on a population-wide scale is stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Yeah,
So I was going to say, I want to play another clip because I think it's appropriate to the point we've got to in the conversation. If I can actually find it. Oh, right, okay, it makes sense if I remember that I haven't actually kept that tab open. So why did I close it? That's a good question. I'll just find it again. And a few people have covered this. I know Hugo Talks covered it. And Luke Bukaki, We Are Change, he covered it as well. But I want to play this clip, this version of it that was uploaded by Based Welshman, simply because I think it's a more complete clip than some of the others I've seen people sharing or using. I've got to put it in YouTube so that I can share the audio. Yeah, I'm just talking out loud to fill up airspace while I'm multitasking. Entertain yourselves for 2 seconds. Right, I'll be there in one moment. All right, get the screen share with the audio, please, so that everyone can hear it, because I think this is something that people really need to hear at the moment. Sometimes all it takes is an example to help people remember that they can do this for themselves. They should be doing this for themselves. Should, yeah. Not always a good word, but it works in the sentence. Anyway, yeah, let's put this up. We've seen that screen here. Yeah, okay. I'm going to mute myself for a sec and play this audio. It's only a couple of minutes, but I think it's worth hearing the whole thing.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Out of this property immediately. I don't care what you have to say. Out! Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Out! Out! Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out! Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without the warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without the warrant. Do not come back without the warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Unbelievable, sick, evil people. Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. You Gestapo, Nazi, communist, fascists. Don't you dare coming back here. Can you imagine those psychopaths? Passover, the holiest Christian festival in a year, and they're coming to intimidate Christians during the holiest festival? Unbelievable. What is wrong with those sick psychopaths? It's beyond me.
Fucking YouTube and its adverts. Piece of crap. So it's because it's cycled through the my playlist. That was why it's jumped to something with an advert on it. I'll put the link to this inside chat, unless of course somebody's already beaten me. Tez's probably already posted it.
Also note that the lockdowns in the UK are just ending in time for Ramadan.
Yeah. As many people have pointed out, it's like, how many times have you seen this happen in a mosque? In the sense of the police turning up like this to try and shut down worship and whatever.
Did you see the one?
They go into worship.
Yeah. There was one in India where they tried to shut down a Sikh temple. Again, the Dollar Vigilante showed you, because the Sikhs carry swords and stuff. They're soldiers, you know. And they just showed like just this wave of Indians tearing down the hippie fencing and rushing through this kind of gateway. And there's these policemen there with big sticks, but these guys have got swords, and it was amazing. There's just this river of people, and there was nowhere that the police could go apart from somewhere else, really, and they weren't having any of it at all. 10 out of 10 to them as well. But I really enjoyed that clip, Cookie. Thanks for showing that. That was brilliant.
It's like the ones in Italy and France as well, where they were just telling them to get out, like in the restaurants and cafes.
Yeah.
This was, I think, in Calgary, in Canada. I'm not sure if they were police or RCMP. People in Canada would probably be able to recognise if there's a difference on the uniforms, the costumes, or whatever. I'm not sure on that, because they're not got the silly hat and the bright red jacket on.
It used to be so that they weren't over here anyway, that they're not in uniform if they're not wearing the hats.
Well, I know.
I wonder if that's still the case.
I don't think it is.
The title says RCMP.
Yeah. But see, some of them to me look like the usual police. This looks like police, probably with council or local authority enforcers of some kind, inspectors, that kind of thing.
She was extraordinarily well trained, I thought, though. She was really persistent. She didn't give any ground, couldn't hear what she was saying, but she stayed calm. I mean, that's under that kind of assault to do that. That's, quite amazing in itself, really.
Well, I was curious about the RCMP thing simply because I know in Canada, it's the RCMP is more like a federal police force. Yeah, they're kind of like the national gendarmerie rather than the actual local police. So it does make a bit of a difference because they have different powers in their legal structure. So I don't know if that's relevant to the situation here. did they take no further action because they don't actually have any legal power that they could take further action? Like he tells them to come back with a warrant, which is, somewhat, it's kind of like a standard response almost. But I don't know, like I say, if it's only applicable to RCMP or what.
They shouldn't be in there without a warrant unless they've got a good reason to be there.
Yeah. And as I say, I wanted to share this particular clip, thanks to Base Welshman for uploading it, because it's got the guy's face in, because sometimes it's nice to just be able to put a face to the voice rather than just hearing the voice. And I felt it also makes a difference because people get that, it's personalized for people. This is not just some guy who's like working for a corporation or whatever. He's the pastor of that church. So he's just telling them where to get off, basically.
Yeah.
And this is why I made the point at the beginning of tonight's broadcast when I was saying about, like, I'm not a Christian. That doesn't mean I deny the fact that the communities that build up around churches are highly beneficial to people. And they offer that kind of community connection for many people. And that doesn't matter what the religion is. It's the fact that people follow a particular religion, and that's the thing that brings them together. That's the unifying thread that brings them together.
I think this is another barb on the point of the spear as well, Cookie, because this isn't the only church I've seen being harassed. There was a clip of a German church in a particularly right-wing area, it was journalists there that were causing the problem, but it was still... and then there was also apparently in France, they're trying to get some really quite draconian laws through to make Muslims behave like French people or something. And that's not going down particularly well. So there is a major thrust against religion of all sorts, I think.
I'm a bit confused.
Except the Vatican.
Well, of course, yeah.
He's handing out the jabs.
I'm a bit confused, though, because I thought, aren't there already French people who are Muslim? There's French people who are Muslim, there's French people who are Hindu, there's French people that are Christian, there's French people that are whatever religion.
Yeah.
So it's a weird kind of manipulation that they're forcing an attachment of a particular religion to a particular ethnic cultural group.
Yeah, and of course it's causing them some problems.
Yeah. I'm sure it would be.
Yeah.
And I'm not avoiding all that question about the different religions and whether one religion gets favoritism compared to another and stuff like that, and whether Christianity is under attack at the moment. I think that's a bit of a I'll use a deliberate pun, that's a bit of a golden calf. I don't think that that is the only thing that's going on here, and I don't think that's the entire crux of the situation. It's just that they want to kill off Christianity, and that's I don't think that's what they're doing or what they're setting out to do at the moment.
I think they seem to believe that there's a completely new writ of some sort running. That's the thing, because I mean, quite apart from the individual religions, holy places and freedom of belief and all that kind of stuff have been properly respected for quite a long time, although not forever. I've been reading about the Reformation, and they've taken churches down before.
And I think that is the main element that is the thread that runs through this. It's not so much which particular religion, it's whichever religion has the strongest community effect.
Good point.
What they're trying to disrupt is not so much which particular religion, because as far as they're concerned, they don't care what you fucking believe in. You can worship a frog, they don't give a shit as long as you still pay your taxes and do what they tell you to. That's their attitude. And if they've got any kind of religion, their religion is the same. Their religious principles are the same in that sense. But what the main thing that they're trying to get at with this is which particular religions have the strongest effect of bringing people together in a community grouping or congregation that supersedes the authority of the state. That's the key point. And this is where I know for a lot of people, they'll quite happily point at like the Communist Manifesto kind of concept that direction. You say, oh yeah, this is what the communists do. It's all the bloody communists. So the communists use the same tactic, but the principle is being applied here across the board, no matter what particular style of government you live under. The point is that they want the state to be the ultimate authority that you give deference to, not anything else, not a religion, not a belief system, not the dog who lives next door. No, you give ultimate authority to the state. So this is similar to what happened with Russia, where the state itself becomes the religion. And they've done somewhat similar in China, but they've softened it a lot more. And they've allowed people their little silly little belief systems kind of thing. They've tolerated a certain amount of that kind of stuff, but as long as you still give the state the ultimate deference of authority. So I think that's what this is about. And that's where, I agree with the guy. If he's a Christian, I'm trying to see it from his point of view. The fact that they're trying to attack that situation now during the Easter period, which in a theological sense is, like he describes it, it's like that is the culmination of the Christian ethos, is the concept of the death and rebirth of the Christ. So them trying to impose their authority at that time is the ultimate act of blasphemy, basically. So that's why I was glad when he starts calling them Gestapo and Nazis and whatever. So they're not National Socialists, but they certainly are the worst elements of that, sort of colloquial definition of Nazi. That's what they're demonstrating, that fascistic authoritarian tyranny that shows no deference to the concept of a deity or anything higher than the state itself. That's not allowed. But that's what I thought. I wanted to play that. Like I said, I know a few people have covered it, but it's those kind of examples that I think make a big difference for people, because he wasn't aggressive. He might have got a bit loud and forceful in his tone, but that's not aggression. And he didn't, even though he did call them Nazi and things like that, he didn't descend into just verbal abuse, as they would call it. You're swearing at our officers, and they're also, they're so soft they can't take it when you swear at them, and they start punching you in the face with a riot shield if you do things like that. But as T has just said in the chat, he was assertive. There's a big difference between being assertive and being aggressive. And I think he makes a really good example of just tell them to get out. Like they did in the cafes and restaurants. He's like, you're not wanted here, you're not needed here. Go away, leave us alone.
And that's number one in the assertiveness training, isn't it? It's get your simple message across and just keep repeating it. This is broken, I need a replacement. Or whatever, and I thought he was brilliant. That was a great performance. I
was just checking back in my notes, so maybe now would be a good time to try playing that other song. I think we should get away with it, hopefully. And if it comes to it, it just means this will be yet another episode uploaded onto Odyssey. If you didn't know, folks, check out odyssey.com. If you just do a search for my channel name on odyssey.com and it should come up. I do have an Odyssey channel. It hasn't auto uploaded the last couple of broadcasts, I think, so I need to sort that out. But it's just so that I've got that backup. With the way all this stuff has been going, I cannot 100% guarantee what does and does not fit into the allowed remit, and at the same time I refuse to self-censor myself to that degree. I'm careful here and there with certain ideas and phrases and keywords and whatever, but I refuse to completely self-censor and just not talk about certain things or not use certain words just because they get an auto flagging on the fucking GooTube system. If they auto-flag shit, or if these videos get taken down, then so be it. That's what happens to them.
That's a good sign. It means that you're, if you're taking flak, then you're over the target area. That's what I say.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, shout out to Steve to Goose, who'll be back on Thursday night for the mystery show, when I tuned in for his show last Thursday. And we talked, the chat was somewhat a little bit about that kind of subject. And I made the comment of like, yeah, when they start trying to character assassinate you, then they're afraid of you. You know that they're afraid of something you're saying or doing, because it demonstrates their tyranny, or it reveals their bullshit, or something that they're scared of.
And they are quite sensitive to it, it would appear, as well. I mean, that's why they have to switch the comments off on all their videos and stuff like that. It's why the World Economic Forum apparently took down the video about kind of you will own nothing and be happy, even though it'd been up there since 2016 or something. They're rumoured to have taken it down. I haven't checked. But they do seem to be sensitive to criticism, and also right the way through the older documents, the Committee of 300 stuff and all of that, they're constantly emphasizing how important it is that people don't realize what they're doing. If this one does come apart, it's going to be extremely difficult to cover up as well.
It's going to cause a massive crash, basically. Is what I think. Is once the dam breaks, it will have a cascading effect. It'll have a domino effect. I don't necessarily mean that everything about society will fall apart and whatever. I don't believe that that's actually how it will play out. But I do think the current institution of the concepts of government will take they'll go through such a massive reformation. I mean, you mentioned reformation earlier about talking about Christianity. In effect, that's a major part of what we're going through at the moment. There is a reformation occurring across the world, and I've said this before. I've likened it to like the process of going through puberty. As a global civilization, as a global species, forget all the other questions about what the shape of the globe is and whatever, the shape of the world, whatever. As a global species, we are in effect trying to clamber out of adolescence. And some of that adolescence has been forced upon us. In other words, we have been systematically, psychologically and spiritually abused and gaslit into an existence of being an infantilized adult. So as a society, as a culture, as a species, including all our technologies and cultures and everything that we've got, that we do, we have been deliberately kept in a stunted frame of mind, a frame of consciousness and your spiritual energy. And what's happening at the moment, this is where it gets a lot more esoteric and connects into things like the galactic changes, the movement of the solar system, which I've ranted about for however many years there. This is a process where we're going through a change, a step change of frequency. And they know this, and they were the ones, the ubiquitous the simplified generalized label, because it's a massive list of individuals, so it's just easier to reference they.
The world management team, I call them.
Yes, yeah. The management is in session.
Yeah.
They have been systematically, generation after generation, perpetuating that infantilized state of society because they enjoy their position in life and they don't want to give it up. They don't like the idea of the great unwashed masses, all that kind of attitude, that eugenicist attitude. So because of that, they are trying to steer and control the changes that are happening now. More and more people are getting to that realization of, well, government's just fucked, isn't it? Doesn't matter which side you vote for, you still end up with more government. And year after year, they keep saying they're going to fix this, that, and the other. But instead of fixing this, that, and the other, they just create more and more problems. And it goes on and on and on. And the parasitic thing that they call government is just getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. So more and more people are starting to have that realization presented to them, because it's an unfortunately beneficial effect of a major crisis causes that kind of existential realization process for people to begin. It sparks that process for people, and in that the result of that is going to be a mass of people looking at the current state of the world, which primarily includes how it is managed by that world management team. They're going to look at that and go, we can't have this anymore. This is getting ridiculous now. I've grown up. I want to leave this cuckolded pseudo-parent environment. We don't need that pseudo-parent of government anymore. Some of the technical functions of a bureaucracy, yes, they're useful to us. But having politicians that think there's some kind of ruling class with a divine right of rule over thousands, millions of other people, that concept is so out of date now. And it's not only out of date, it is destructive. Yeah. I could wax lyrical in that kind of sense about all that kind of stuff, but instead I will use my lexicon of words to segue into playing some more music. Because it works, doing that kind of thing. That's what your language is good for.
Yeah, bring it
words. On. Right, I'll put the audio on this, so hopefully we should be able to hear it. I'm going to mute myself and play this track. This is, at the moment on BitChute from Information Incorporated. I'll put the link in the side chat in a sec, but I'll shut up and play this.
Sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets push the same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
Because of you, we're in this mess. Forever you will acquiesce. How you love to be deceived. Whatever they tell you, you believe. Get a sight, get a mind. You believer, you are blind. Critical thinker, you are not. Never independent thought. Bust into your paradigm. Hypnotized with pantomime. Regurgitating all you hear. Spread your terror, spread your fear. Never your mind to be free. Never your eyes will never see. Let the blood of tyranny pay for your slavery. Stable and remote control. Let me know your very soul. Tune into the great deceiver. Television watching news believer. Inject your poison where your mind. All they have to do is ask. Never questioning authority. Blindly following like sheep. Yes sir, no sir, free backs. fool, you television watching fool. Yeah. Never your mind to be free. Never your eyes will ever see. Let the brood of tyranny begging for your slavery. Stay out remote control. Let me know your very soul. Turn into the great deceiver. Television watching news believer. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. 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 In their world forever locked. Into their world forever boxed. Reality you leave behind. A prisoner of your own mind. Forever you will be deceived, never ever to be free. Yeah. Never your mind to be free. Never your eyes will ever see. Let the brood of tyranny begging for your slavery. Stay out remote control. Let me know your very soul. Tune into the great deceiver. Television watching news believer. Never your mind to be free. Never your eyes will ever see. Let the brood of tyranny begging for your slavery. Stay out remote control. Let me know your very soul. Tune into the great deceiver. Television watching news believer.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our sanity. Drop full screen. Stop the screen share. This is extremely dangerous to our insanity. Yeah, they want to keep their insanity going for as long as possible. But you don't need to buy their bullshit. Just say, get out. You are not wanted here. Get out.
You should be ashamed of yourselves. What would your mother say?
I mean, BitChute doing autoplay on me. Oh, I stopped it. Yeah.
Music's such a good way of getting the message across, isn't it? And that really is a bloody brilliant piece of video editing as well.
Yeah. I think they've done that really well to get the point across. Yeah. Especially with that classic clip of this is really dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah.
That just really epitomizes what they were presenting in the They Live storyline. Yeah. This stuff looks like just media. Yeah, some people might say it's a bit commercialist, it's a bit consumerist, but there's nothing really to worry about. They just want you to buy stuff. It's like, no, it's a lot more insidious than that. Yeah, the messages that are encoded into stuff that just get dripped into the public's consciousness on a regular basis.
And it's actually kind of like it's been embedded for so long. One of the things I noticed years ago is that you don't get to run a licensed radio station unless you put the news at the top of the hour. So there was, for a while, there was an outburst when we got digital radio of, like, the one I was listening to was Planet Rock. And even it had very few adverts in it, but it still had the 2 minutes news at the top of the hour, but it tended to be, and now the news, this has happened, and now back to the rock music. But pretty quickly it degenerated to the point where the news was kind of lasting longer, and they were covering exactly the same stories as are chosen by all the other stations. So if you like, it's a kind of bigger version of what we're seeing now, with all those hundreds of people just reading you the same script. I
mentioned this the other night, as Chomsky pointed out decades ago now. They will allow debate, they will allow choice within a certain boundary, because then that gives the illusion that there is options and choice and free will and etc. etc. So yeah, you got this like collection of pseudo decentralized platforms, all these different little independent news production companies around the USA. But when you actually look at how they operate and who owns them and stuff like that, so actually they're all basically the same fucking company.
Yeah, and
they
you
might
won't
have
see
a different brand logo and different office building that they work from, but they're all the same company.
Yeah, and you won't see a libertarian or a voluntarist or an anarchist on any of them.
Yeah. Not allowed. Only the state is allowed.
One of the things I'd really love to see is some debates between some of some of the best people on the internet and some of the top people who are pulling this sort of stunt, because you never ever get to see them put in the same place so that they can talk through the ideas. And that's something, if we ever work to a resolution of this, that I'd love to see happen. I'd like to see these guys sat in some kind of chair and ask the difficult questions just so that we could see them squirm.
But we'll wait and see. I think the way things are progressing. Sorry, I was multitasking, trying to look through some of the pictures you shared. I'm just getting the screen share sorted out. The way they've tried to progress this, and the kind of narrative that they've set out to try and achieve, the narrative of the agendas where they want it to go to, and the way they've had to try certain methods to achieve those agenda goals. They basically had to go all in. I've used that kind of poker game analogy before. They've had to go all in, and they're not just, betting what's in their pocket. They're betting everything they have, because if this narrative does fall apart, like I mentioned not so long ago, the ripple effect of that, it will cause a domino effect that will cause a reformation of societal infrastructures, the judicial system, the science, the academic world, peer review and all that kind of stuff will go through a massive reformation. Government and the bureaucracies around government, healthcare, and the internet environment, all the ISPs and platform providers, the tech companies, it will create such a massive ripple effect. They know they're all in on this. And because it's such a big effect, potentially, that means the sort of stability of it is highly fragile. Because it's so massive. Imagine trying to spin a 24-inch, that's what? No, that's less than a meter, isn't it? All right, call it a meter, just for all those modern people. Imagine, the spinning plates. The trick of spinning plates is to keep the momentum going so that the imbalance is counteracted by the gyromotive force. Like a spinning top. Imagine how difficult it is to spin a 1 meter wide plate. That's what they're doing. The project they're attempting to achieve is massive. So because it's so massive, it's on a very, very fine pivot point.
Yeah.
You may think it's only a little grain of sand, like, for example, the video clip of that pastor telling them to get out. It might seem like a little grain of sand in a big storm of chaos. But because of the size of the project, that tiny little sand can cause an imbalance that would eventually lead to that spinning plate crashing to the ground. So they're playing an extremely dangerous game, the ultimately dangerous game.
Something I've noticed on the ground, which I think is particularly interesting and seems to be quite general, is that we've really sort of lost our conversation, and that suddenly I'm coming across people who do actually want them, and what they're really missing is the genuine exchange of ideas, even if they don't necessarily agree with the ideas that are being exchanged. And it's quite remarkable that that's actually become a rare thing. And it's round us anyway. It's becoming a valued commodity. People are seeking each other out. I've actually got a hat which says "Revelation through conversation" on the front of it, which is really helping, because people can't say they weren't warned.
That's a good phrase as well.
Yeah, well, I'm also wondering whether that might not be something, because these energetic changes that we're talking about on the solar system and the galactic scale. We are all electromagnetic beings. Who knows what effect that is having, not necessarily on all consciousnesses, but some consciousnesses.
Yeah. Well, in particular, and I'm saying this purely for comedic fashion. We were warned only a few days ago that Uranus is flaring.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm saying I'm only saying it for comedic fashion, but it is one of those examples from the environment of what you're talking about, what we're talking about. There is a change that's happening in the solar system and in the galactic plane as a whole.
That's right.
It would be very naive to think that has zero effect on us.
Yeah, indeed. We know it has an effect on us. In fact, it's likely to be increasing. But I think that the aurora. Yeah, I've got aurora on Uranus. Yeah, indeed. Most unfortunate.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be an injection for that soon, right? You'll have to get it tested every day, though. They want a sample. One of the other silly parody lyrics I thought of as well. 2 jabby jabs, 1 for the butt and down your throat. 2 jabby jabs up your butt. Sorry, that's all I got to so far. I get these parody lyrics come into my head, and it's like, I try to remember to write them down, but sometimes I forget them. Yeah, that's just the way my musical creativity works at the moment. I get comedy parody lyric versions are coming into my head over older songs, but Krispy Kreme, marijuana, beer, and anything else they can try and tempt you with. Just 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks.
In exchange, free with COVID vaccine, Krispy Kreme, marijuana, beer, and more. You got to laugh at that.
I was saying it to Pete the other night when we was off air, just as like just silly thing to say, comedy kind of thing. I can envision in the not too distant future there being a series of adverts where like in the kind of brand marketing corporate world, they like the modern concept of selling you an experience rather than just selling you a product and saying how good the product is. Like sometimes you'll see like vacuum cleaners and they bang on about how great the vacuum cleaner is and whatever. But another marketing technique is they sell you the experience of something. This will enhance your life because you have now had this experience of owning this product or whatever. And I can see advertising starting where they're like, did you miss out on your COVID experience? Go and get yourself a jab today and you too can experience the thrill of being COVID positive. So are you missing out? Do you want to be one of the in crowd? Then you too need to go and get your jab so you can have the COVID. It's that they're selling it on that kind of sub level of making it trendy. They're trendifying it. Yeah. And I know we talked about that kind of element before of it's very cult like. You have to be a believer in the narrative, basically. That's the God that you're believing in, is the narrative that they're weaving for you. And it is getting that kind of silly now, which is why I think this summer is potentially going to be a major tipping point. And if that massive plate, the analogy I use, if that massive plate they're trying to spin gets enough imbalance in it, it's going to come flying off. And we could potentially see immense benefits. I know the situation that as it's been rolling out has been like a crushing effect of tyranny. Now the tyranny that a lot of us have been talking about, forewarning of or whatever for years, this is the example of it. Now it's here. But that doesn't mean it's going to be successful, and it doesn't mean it's going to become the new normal, as they like to insist. They keep telling us that because it's not the reality. Therefore, they have to keep telling it to us to try and convince us of it. It's not settled yet. It's not over yet. This whole thing, when it falls apart, could reap much more benefits for us in the long run, because now more and more people are aware of how these kind of things will be done against them. These kind of psychological manipulative tactics will be used against them, which means now you've got more and more of the public that are forewarned and forearmed against that kind of tactic. So the government's going to descend, the management team, the world management team, they're going to descend into more and more desperate measures to try and persuade people to believe their bullshit. So, like offering you fucking donuts.
Free weed. Free weed, that's desperate, that is.
Yeah. It's like, I can get that already, mate. It's called planting seeds and growing plants. Yeah, it's amazing. Nature gives us all this stuff for free. It's only when we come along that we stick stupid fucking labels on it and charge each other money for it. Yeah, whatever. I know, there's a separate argument to be made about property and all that kind of thing, which are fair and good and valid arguments, but we do descend into silliness at times, especially when it comes to how we treat each other. Yeah. That's almost like what I was just suggesting, is it? No COVID-19 symptoms, you can still get tested. Did you miss out on your share? Did you miss out on the experience of being COVID positive? Do you want to go on the thrill ride of looking at the test and waiting for the result? Did you get negative? Oh, that's the kind of shit they're trying to sell people now.
Oh my God, is that an actual advert? That's real, is it? It's not a, oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
Free COVID-19 test for people with no symptoms. Well, that's exactly what's going on, isn't it? Yeah. And that's one of the fundamental questions, isn't it? So, so you've got no symptoms, you've got no underlying problems, but you're going to go and get yourself tested anyway.
Yeah, with a test that is 97% fallible. So you have a 97% chance of resulting in a positive result, even though you're perfectly fine and there's nothing wrong with you.
And that's a situation which apparently gets considerably worse when there's what they call a sort of low intensity infection. If there aren't many infections, your false positive rate goes up even further.
I think that, if anything, that's a sort of little data point that could provide an indicator, or does provide, I think more is likely, provides an indication that the cycle threshold they're using is way above any sensible use.
Yes, indeed.
Territory.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the impression I've got as well. If you're using cycle thresholds of, 30 is regarded to be a little bit uncertain, 35 definitely uncertain. And I've read that the PCR tests that are being used generally recommend sort of 40 cycles.
Yeah, I've seen the same kind of material, mate. I'm not a phlebotomist. I don't operate those machines. I don't know how to operate one of those machines. But I've looked at material, evidence and paperwork and whatever from various different sources. So I'm not hearing it from just one-sided point of view. And that includes the originator, the creator of the test itself, Carrie Mullis. I listened to his own words. I looked at some of his own statements on this situation. To me, it's a foregone conclusion. When they talk about trusting the science, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trusting the data that has been peer reviewed and is publicly available, and that data shows that using these tests to do what they're claiming is idiotic, unless your intention is to create a false narrative based on crappy data. Then it's perfectly suited for what you want. And I think that's that then brings up the question of the coincidental timing of his death. Yeah, isn't it funny how that person who could have blown the whole situation out the water happened to die the year before all this shit happened? It's a little bit like when William Cooper died just before 9/11. Yeah. Anyway.
Carrie Mullis has been on this subject for a long time as well, because he was talking about it again with connection to HIV.
Yep.
I've read stuff that he was saying about it then as well as the interview that you've seen. I saw that one as well. It's pretty down the line, really. And it does, in fairness, it says it on all the packaging as well. It says that this can't be used for diagnostic purposes. Basically, what they're saying is, obviously, you need, unlike in, just like we used to, you need to be able to see the patient and have some idea of their history and know what they're being treated with and stuff like that before this thing can be of any use to you at all. And even then, you've got to use it within certain parameters that are subsequently poorly defined in the actual instructions for the test. So, and then they're amassing all of the data from all the different, how many different sort manufacturers of PCR are there? I've come across probably half a dozen, but they might all be completely different, and yet they're agglomerating all of the data from them and stuff. It's completely meaningless, worse than meaningless exercise, really.
Well, the one side benefit possibly, and I know this is somewhat debatable because you can't always guarantee the content of the test sample, but one of the side benefits is DNA collection, DNA databasing.
Yeah.
If they get the majority, I don't want to say the entire population, because getting 100% is, probably not a possibility for them logistically.
You don't need it anyway, do you? That's the nature of the genome and stuff.
Yeah, and especially when all it takes is one blood relative of yours to be tested. That means they've got your DNA as well. There might be slight variations in your DNA, but they've got the basic pattern of your family's DNA because one person got tested out of your family. So that's one of the side possibilities, which I think is more than likely, but I'm sure they'll quite happily deny that. Plausible deniability and all that shit. Oh, the data's only kept for so long and then it's destroyed.
No.
Honest.
Yeah, it's not us, it's the Chinese.
We sold it all to the Chinese. Or like Zuckerberg. It's like, oh, whoops, we leaked a load of data again. Oh, whoopsie. Yeah, fucking bullshit.
Oh, it's the Chinese. That's all right then.
Yeah, that makes it okay because everyone loves the Chinese.
Well, didn't they set up some sort of security arrangement where the NSA weren't? This was in the old days when the NSA weren't technically allowed to watch Americans and GCHQ weren't technically allowed to watch the land of Albion. But so what they did was they arranged it so that GCHQ watched the Americans and the NSA were watching all the Brits. It's
the Five Eyes circle jerk.
Yeah, that was before they just started scooping up everything entirely.
It'd be masturbation if I did it to myself, but if we form a little circle, so it's a circle jerk. It should really be the 6 eyes as well, rather than the 5 eyes.
I think
try
you're
to
right,
remember to always make that point. Even though Israel is not an official member of the Five Eyes Alliance, they are a major part of it anyway. So it's because we're coming up to time, so I'm going to have a quick check in the chat room. Say hello to people in the chat room again. Hello. Thanks for joining in the chat. Thanks for giving us your attention for about a couple of hours on what is supposed to be a bank holiday. Now we're all bankers. You should be on holiday. But I'm going to little scroll up. I'm sure I saw a few names that I didn't mention earlier. Say a quick hello to people. Lots of Tathro. Hello, mate. And I know some New Being, hello. And Groove Dodger, hello. And What's Up, hello. Thanks for posting in the chat. I didn't realise he had a YouTube channel as well. So I did a quick search while I was listening. I was sitting here having a little headbang. Yeah, somewhat old and aged sort of, it's more like just nodding my head now. Yeah, while I was listening, I went and found his YouTube channel and put the link in the side chat. Thanks for that. I thought he was only on BitChute. Subdue Light, hello. Thanks for joining in. And Mink 109, hello. Nick GB, hello. I think I said hello to everyone. I said hello, Apple Charlotte, hello. Thanks for joining in. I did see your comment earlier, didn't I? Yeah. And I'm sure I saw the chat room ninja in there somewhere. James, hello, James. I saw you pop in at the last minute to post a comment. I'm scrolling a bit quicker now, trying to get back to the up-to-date feed. Right, okay. Yeah, the Rebel, hello. Thanks for joining in. And Brad, hello, Brad. And thanks to everyone for joining in the chat. Yeah, don't believe the bullshit. Don't believe the hype. They keep trying to sell their craziness, but that is literally what they're trying to sell, insanity. A belief system based on insane beliefs. And as Voltaire pointed out, you know, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And, you know, look at the way the situation's developing in various places around the world. And then we can start debating the definition of what is an atrocity. I think soon the definition is going to be somewhat unquestionable because it's going to become obvious. Anyway, yeah, we'll be back again Wednesday night for the reality chat. I think Peter should be back online again then. He's probably been enjoying the sunshine over this weekend. I hope you all managed to get some sunshine. It's good for you, don't you know? Get some sunshine, get some good music on, enjoy the environment, you know, definitely. Don't forget that. They want you to forget that natural environment. Don't let them stuff that wedge in between you and the reality around you. That way lies madness. Warning, what is it? Danger, Will Robinson. I was going to say warning, Will Robinson. It's not, is it? Danger, Will Robinson. And I think, yeah, I did say it earlier, didn't check out Steve Tagoose on the Thursday night. And check out Dr. Rock on posttruthworld.net. Yeah, I can't remember it now. I memorized it now. Yeah, posttruthworld.net on a Thursday night as well. And you're doing the Saturday as well for music.
That's right, yeah, playing some tunes, getting my hand in that way on a Saturday night between 7 and 9, going up to Tony's Sweet Reggae show.
Cool.
Yeah. Hoping to be looking at some yarns this Thursday, all these various things, because it's going to be down, all of this is down to how we interact with the people, you know, whatever, the agents of the state, like that guy was doing in the church, really. Yeah. There's a number of ways that in the past have worked for people, and I just want to remember a few of the stories I've heard over the last 10 years of things that have worked for people, because might be helpful as time goes by.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to all the people making art, making music, you know, making that creative way of connecting with people and getting the information out. And I hope YouTube has been okay with what we've been sharing tonight, and they don't do their freak out anxiety attack thing and whatever. But yeah, there's some good music out there at the moment. There's a lot more people getting that inspiration, as well as having the time available to them to, you know, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time and effort, especially if you're putting together something that's quite, you know, well produced. You make the time and effort to be what's the word for it? I don't want to, it's not professional, but to make it the way you want it to be. Sometimes that take, from the artist's point of view, sometimes that takes almost blood, sweat and tears. Time and effort is required to get that imagery of what you're seeing in your mind, down on paper or recorded, whatever. Sometimes it takes a fair bit of effort, and sometimes it just springs naturally, and it's inspirational in its what's the word for it? In the now, the way it just comes out in the moment, and you flow with that inspiration. Yeah, I'm going to start waffling on about poetic stuff again. Anyway, thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Hope you've all been having a good weekend. We'll see you again soon. I'm going to click the button at that point. So thank you, catchies.